Hey friends, today's episode is brought to you by Engagio, the leader in account-based marketing and sales with their all-in-one solution. Are you familiar with account-based marketing and sales? I mean, if you're selling to the enterprise, to big business, account-based strategies are the new wave of doing business. If you're selling to the enterprise, if you're dealing with multiple decision makers, if you need to close larger deals, then an account-based approach is a necessity. However, while there's a lot of talk out there about account-based marketing and sales, there's very little actionable advice on strategies and tactics you need to take. So our friends at Engagio asked dozens of independent sales and marketing experts, leaders in their fields, to contribute their recommendations about what you need to know to get started with it. And Engagio has compiled the collective wisdom of these experts into a most comprehensive guide that reveals everything you need to know about using account-based strategies to win bigger deals. It's called The Clear and Complete Guide to Account-Based Sales Development. It's free, and you need it. So head over to engagio.com/accelerate and grab your copy today. That's engagio.com/accelerate. Okay, let's do the show. It's time to accelerate. Hi, this is Andy. Welcome to episode 448 of Accelerate, the sales podcast of record, where I hold in-depth conversations with today's leading experts in sales, marketing, and leadership 6 days a week. Also, please be sure to go to iTunes. If you haven't already, subscribe to this podcast, leave us a review. We'd love to hear from you. Now, are you in a sales slump? I mean, things just not happening the way you want? Then you need to visit accelerate.fm/spark to find out how to restart the engine on your sales machine by downloading my step-by-step guide titled How to Spark a Sales Turnaround. It's based on my interviews with over 300 of the world's leading sales experts right on the show, and it's packed full of actionable advice that you can use right now. So go to accelerate.fm/spark to download your free copy today. Joining me on the show today is Justin Gray. He is the co-founder and CEO of LeadMD. We're having a conversation about marketing and lead development trends in 2017. We're going to talk about how to avoid chasing the fads. And Justin talks about 3 words in particular that are very important to have as part of your overall program: quality, tribe, and process. Justin, so welcome to the show. Tell us a bit about you.
Yeah, so you said it. So founder and CEO, LeadMD, and then we've got a new venture that we're working on called Six Bricks that I've also co-founded and playing the same role as we try to take everything that we've learned and come to market with on the LeadMD side and serve it up as curriculum and train the next generation of marketers. So those are really the 2 companies where I spend my day.
So an online academy.
Exactly.
Train people how to on marketing automation.
That and really everything digital marketing and
digital marketing, okay.
Which is to say marketing these days. So.
Right. So LeadMD is, as you said, sort of the preeminent Marketo professional services firm, consulting firm. So is Six Bricks focused purely on Marketo or digital marketing in general?
Yeah, digital marketing in general with branches into those very specific areas. We support Salesforce.com, Marketo, and then as we mentioned, as we were chatting before, we announced Engagio last week. So we're excited to have them as a partner as well.
As are we. They're a sponsor of this program. So
awesome.
They get multiple mentions. Yeah. So you recently wrote an article about resolutions and trends in 2017.
Yeah.
And you talked about we'll have our assumptions challenged. But you talk about 3 words: quality, tribe, and process as sort of the focal point of what you're talking about. So let's start with quality. So what did you mean by quality as a trend to watch in 2017?
Yeah, so as marketers look at the metrics and the ways that they're measured, we traditionally looked at eyeballs and clicks and so on. But I think even those high-level vanity metrics are getting harder and harder to achieve. And the reason being, everyone's doing it these days. I don't see a lot of the debate around should I do content marketing. Now the debate is, how much time can I really devote to building my own brand and my company's brand and putting together these awesome content pieces that get attention that people want to share and they want to promote. Your customers and your prospects really become your promotion channel. Right. So quality drives all of that, and it's incredibly difficult to keep up with. On a weekly basis, I probably spend 20 plus hours assembling content, and we've got many other folks around here that contribute to that as well. And everyone always asks, like, when do you write that stuff? Like, midnight. You've got to make time in the day that doesn't interfere with your core output to spend the time and to create that quality. So for me, quality is, it has legs into everything, but content's a good representation of such.
All right. So quality is, just a great watchword here, is tons of content. So most of it, as you might expect, would probably have normal Pareto distribution, 80-20, 80% not very good, 20% quality. Mm-hmm. What really distinguishes quality content?
Yeah, I think quality content, there's two aspects to that. Number one, is it authentic? When we put something together that is a best practice, is it really something that we've learned for the past decade and it is core, even if it's not something that the market is ready to hear? I think, we're very focused on trying to remain true to, this is what you have to do to succeed with these items. And that might be, implementing marketing automation is a 3 to 6 month journey just to get plugged into the stack. That's not a popular stance.
Right.
Everyone wants to hear that you're up and running in 30 days and here's the one secret and so on. So to me, that authenticity is something you have to maintain. And then also, I do believe now more than ever that authenticity translates into content that people want to share and they want to use. And that does add up to some of those metrics that we've traditionally tracked in terms of, clicks and eyeballs and shares and form fills and so on. But those are almost ancillary. I think if you focus on the quality, then you'll get, as a result, those metrics that show it pollinating.
So authenticity, this is, a buzzword, becoming a buzzword in itself, right? So,
sure.
So how do you make something authentic? This is I think is a challenge because it's,
sure.
As most of it is bad that we see. It's not serving the company's purposes that's sending it out, and they're sending out in greater quantities than they ever used to before.
Yep.
So if somebody's listening to this and saying, okay, well, I want to be authentic, and the voice carries over marketing, sales, whatever. What do you see as the keys to authenticity?
Yeah, and it's definitely not a checklist, but I think, the state of television right now is a great metaphor that I always refer to. And the state of television right now is user testing. So if you look at something like Amazon Prime that's putting out one episode, no plans to pick that show up whatsoever, put it out in the universe, see how people respond to it, and then invest. That, to me, leads to bringing a greater level of authenticity into what you create. You're allowing the reader or the consumer to vote with their eyeballs and then say, this is what people are really resonating with. And a lot of times that is a good map for what is authentic. Obviously, you want to avoid all of that clickbait and so on. But if you look at what TV is doing, they're not creating 20-second spots. They're investing in a product that people are going to be able to sink their teeth into, say, yeah, I want more of this.
Right.
And then, you're able to kind of take that feedback and run with it. So I really do think that's a decent metaphor for how you determine if you're on the right path and if you're developing authentic content.
But clickbait still works.
It works in terms of the eyeball on it, right? Like if you're only looking at that metric, I think that's where... But
it's not converting.
Right, exactly. No one's going to write a review on that piece of content that says 5 stars, awesome, this kicked ass, right? Like they're going to say, this sucked, like you just wasted my time. And I think online gives us a greater ability to get that feedback as well.
Right.
So, you have to, I guess, adding in there, you have to have a good feedback channel to determine, is this something that your readers are passionate about and are they sharing it? Because if you're just measuring that initial eyeballs metric, then you're not going to be able to have a very good insight.
Right. So another issue with quality, and I alluded to that earlier, quality over quantity, is that you talk about reference a benchmark report that 81% of marketers report sending out over 1,000 pieces of automated email per month to their prospects. And compound that by, have all these sales development platforms that enable reps to do mail merges and so on. So we could be seeing 2,000 going out.
Yeah, I think 1,000 is a pretty low number, but we chose it because I think it's still a good benchmark of, are you sending out a lot of email? And I think, frankly, 1,000 emails is a lot of email. In this day and age, most of the campaigns we do for clients is, frankly, approaching 100,000 or more emails across, a very calculated outreach. But 1,000's a lot of emails. If you needed to personalize 1,000 emails and you needed to write those on a daily basis, that would be very difficult. And those aren't happening. Those are happening in a mass format.
Sure.
So unless you have a really good view of who your customer is and you can bring in a lot of data about them and make that email highly personalized, chances are we're giving a very blanket message. So that whole quality versus quantity message is what we're hearing people want, but we're not really seeing the action come in line with that yet.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of raises a question. I ask people this all the time. Is certainly my feeling is about sales technologies, as great as many of them are, is that when you look at industry reports in terms of close rates, conversion rates, percent of quotas or percent of reps making quota, so on and so forth, it's like, we're not getting the ROI on this technology. Now, either we're using it inappropriately, which may be possible, or it's not really doing what we need to have done. Do you see the same thing sort of true of the MarTech world?
Yeah, absolutely. I think MarTech and sales enablement technology, and you ask a normal marketer, how many pieces of technology are in your stack today?
Yeah,
and we did this. We did a focus group, and it's over 40. Every single person and you're like, 40? They start talking about everything that they're using. I use Bitly, and I use, all these little tools add up. So whether you're spending, $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 a month on it, or whether you're spending $50 on a credit card, you've got all of these different systems to manage. And chances are you've got data in every single one of those systems that you need to present a personalized, hyper-personalized message out there to the marketplace. And that integration and process is something that we're constantly seeing created after the purchase, not prior. So it's not a thought out purchase. It's a gut reaction. We need this. So and so has this. So and so said to buy this.
Sure.
It's easy to buy. Really hard to make work.
Yeah, and that's mirrored on the sales side, where I think one survey was talking to sales enablement VPs, like, we've got 5 to 7 apps in our sales stack. They go down to the sales floor, it's 13 to 15 or something. So they're using all the little things they can to try to get an edge.
Yeah, so, and that's really what it is as well. Like you see this huge land grab. Instagram is great for marketers. Let's get on Instagram, and then you see that migration go away. Like the speed at which those markets are collapsing is more and more rapid than ever. Like email, what had almost a decade run before we started seeing those major declines.
Right.
Nowadays, the declines happen in a month or maybe even a week.
So for someone that is focused on sending a lot of email, though, what is the key? What is what is the quality key? I mean, we talk about authenticity, but email's kind of complex. Yeah,
data is the key. And when you talk to a marketer, the first thing they'll be volunteering is how bad the state of the database is, and there's no quick fix for that. I mean, ultimately, you can clean up values that degrade quickly, like revenue and employees and all these demographic signals that we've traditionally gathered. But really the day-to-day engagement, like what's happening in your billing department with that customer and exposing that out to the marketer or the sales individual, that's the type of information that we need. And that's hard information to curate. And honestly, I think until CRM becomes becomes table stakes in that process, it's not something where you have to pivot your chair from the system that it takes to do your job into the system that records you doing your job. Until those become one, we're never going to get to a point where we can use a tool like marketing automation and say 100% every single one of my messages is on point, is on message. This buyer should respond to that. Until we get our data in line, we're simply not able to do so.
Interesting. But it's sort of, you obviously Marketo integrates somewhat seamlessly with Salesforce, but you're really talking about going deeper, having your accounting systems, your ERP systems, whatever that has an impact with a customer, an interaction with a customer needs to be tracked and presented to the sales marketing people.
Honestly, that's what I love most about some of these new tools, and we mentioned the one that I'm going to dive into detail on, but just the ability to take the inbox. I mean, frankly, everyone says we need to get out of the inbox. We have Slack, we love Slack, but all my outside communication still resides in my inbox. So if I'm able to take that communication and make it visible to the rest of the organization so that they can say, this conversation between Justin and this prospect went this way, without me having to go in and log an activity or add that email to Salesforce, that's manna from heaven for me. So until we get to that point where you have that 360-degree view, not only of the traditional data sources, but all of these different data sources that have arisen, that's really the data I'm talking about getting after.
Right. And so you alluded to application. So which one were you talking about?
Engagio.
Okay.
I think tapping into core systems, and Salesforce Lightning is doing some of this as well, just in blending that experience. Like I think LinkedIn's the biggest CRM in the world, right? Like I use LinkedIn.
In essence, right, yeah.
Find the prospects, see what they're actually doing. They're going to self-curate their profile. It's awesome. But now I have to turn around and get those guys into CRM. A week later, hey, who had an email exchange with this person and didn't add it to Salesforce? Oh, slap you on the wrist. How many times do you do that before you just kind of give up and say, we need to combine these systems into one?
Right. So, Engagio, though, is really sort of targeted for people that are doing more of the complex B2B sale, enterprise sale.
Yep.
So, a lot of what we're seeing in terms of, for say, bad practices from the marketing side and the sales side really are focused not as much on the enterprise as it is on the, the small and mid-sized businesses.
Sure.
So, what's sort of the future for them? How do you see?
Yeah, I really do see, SMBs as having a leg up. I run an SMB very much on purpose, just because I think you can pivot and you can change and you can fix things at just in a more agile manner. So when it comes to what can SMBs do, I think number one, they can learn from the huge amount of resources that we're all creating and giving away for the sake of trying to penetrate the enterprise. You Google anything. HubSpot probably has written a great article about how you can at least get a little bit into best practice around sales and marketing.
I'm sure they've written at least one, yeah.
Yep. So grab all of that information and learn from the mistakes of big companies that just can't pivot that quickly, and those enterprises are starting to move more quickly as well. So I think we'll see that start to come in line in the same way that we see within smaller organizations, but. Data is still the same challenge, whether you're selling now, if that SMB is selling at a lower ASP and they've got a more transactional sales process, there's still better ways to gather that data, whether it's, tracking web behaviors, whether it's cart behaviors, all of those items need to be gathered somewhere in a way that we can make sense of and retarget or remarket or engage with that customer. So same challenge, maybe different systems involved, probably a lower cost point, but really the same methodology. We're never going to stop wanting to know more about the customer and communicate that with them in an intelligent way.
Okay. So the second word you talked about was tribe, and you said your mission this year to transform people from self-aware, I'm so great mentality to inclusive, we're so great mindset, which I thought was very timely. I just did finish talking to Robert Cialdini for the show, and he's talking about his new book, Persuasion. I don't know if you've read it, but this whole concept of unity between a buyer and a seller being so critical. And that's really, to my mind, that's what you really were talking about. Yeah,
unity, I think, across whoever the players are within that conversation, right? Like we have to build that. I think it really comes down to trust, right? Like, do you trust that the people around you are on the same mission that you're on, and so on? This is all based on a methodology that everyone is in these five, there are 5 different tribes in the world, right? Like the early tribes, your 1s and your 2s are like, the world is terrible. It's people in prison, like bucket 1. We don't normally deal with them on a daily basis, right? Bucket 2 is you're starting to get out of those like very, those constructs that keep you down, and you're actually keeping yourself down. 3s, you're graduating up that tier, and the operable detail there is trust. So as you graduate from one bucket to another, you're able to look around and say, these people are like me. We all understand the same thing. We're all working towards the same goal. Incredibly difficult as you get up into those 4 and 5 level tribes.
So in your mind, from a marketing perspective, in this type of environment, what are the keys to engendering that trust?
Yeah, and again, that's why I love the whole ABM, ABE message. And is it a buzzword? Yeah. Do we need buzzwords to get things communicated? Yes.
Sure.
So ultimately, we all need to take a step back. What is working? What's not working? And let's expose those metrics to the organization, whether it's the marketing team or it's the company as a whole. Demand gen as a blanket strategy does not work. Strategy does not work. There's data that we have to look at and say what we're doing as a one-size-fits-all strategy right now is not yielding the result that we need. And buying every technology is not yielding the result that we need. So let's take a look at the data and let's together solve for this. What role is everyone going to play within that solution? And what are we going to measure that on and break? And let's go do that. So again, just those types of conversations traditionally happen in very small groups. And then there's a filter process. You go out to your team and, hey guys, this is the big metric because that's what I'm being measured on as your manager, and you're gonna do this for me this quarter, this year, whatever. Instead, we're kind of opening up that communication circle and letting everyone be part of that process and that discussion from the very beginning.
So one of the key things with ABM, obviously, is sales marketing alignment. I mean, is it time to sort of get rid of the distinction between sales and marketing in this type of environment? I mean, relook at the roles altogether.
I'm hesitant to say yes. I mean, I mean, that's like a utopian world right there. But
in your mind, that'd be utopia.
Yeah, well, it's an unattainable utopia, and probably not one that we ever want to maintain, right? Because salespeople are a different breed, and I think when you deal with marketers all day long, as we do, there are very distinct traits between what a sales individual and a marketer are from their makeup, their core. Now, from a skills perspective, absolutely, I think that those two need to start cross-pollinating more. We need to understand, how to sniff out commitment as marketers, and what are we going to do so that we're not, throwing bait in the water, in essence. What are we actually going to do to ensure that there's a hook there and that we can reel someone in as necessary? On the sales side, we need to start creating content. You see this happening already, like individuals out there that are great salespeople, not just consultants and speakers and coaches as we've all done forever, but actual people in the chair, in the role, are starting to tell the stories of what's happening day to day as a way to engage their audience.
Sure.
You've got folks out there just, they've got this SDR Chronicles thing that this dude named Morgan that works over at Terminus does. It's awesome. Like, you would never see that 5 years ago. Like, no SDR is ever going to be creating content 5 years ago for the sake of saying, I'm doing things different. You should as well. Let's talk about how we can do it differently together. That's the type of progression I'm talking about in terms of just traits and skills being shared amongst those departments. But we definitely need, people who play more of a sales role, people who play a marketing role, customer success, all these different epicenters. But we need to kind of decentralize a lot of these traits that have become very siloed historically within one department.
Well, but one of the other sort of, I don't want to say artifact, but let's say outcomes of really embracing ABE, ABM, whatever we're going to call it, and I wish we'd settle on one.
Probably will at some point.
Well, Trish Bertuzzi has ABR. I think I like that, account-based revenue. Is really a much more of a team approach, to sales.
Agreed.
So that's why I sort of asked the previous question, because I've worked in organizations where we've sold large, complex, tens of millions of dollars worth of systems, at a time, where there was somebody in a sales role, but when we looked at how we organized, how we compensated people, and so on, it changed because no one person was really driving the boat. In terms of saying, this person was worth 20% more in the outcome than this person. No, it was a team effort. It seems like that's sort of a logical outcome. What's happening with ABM, ABE?
Well, I think as a byproduct of that type of thinking, you also get rid of a lot of wasted time that marketers spend on attribution, frankly. Attribution in theory is awesome. I'm all for it. In practice, very difficult to truly say that attendance at a webinar accounted for 30% of that revenue that came across the line. So I think we spent a lot of operational time focusing on if you're looking at those metrics and you're saying this is a decent guide. Okay, great. We understand the types of activities that this individual engaged in. We know where they spent the most time in that process, learning and engaging with our teams. Great, stop there. But if you're really trying to get down to, hey, I'm going to try and commission marketing 20% on this sale and sales 15%, that's, I think, a defeatist activity. So absolutely, I think the more that we look at this from a team perspective, the more time we'll spend on the actions that actually matter.
So how do you deal with the attribution issue within your organization?
So we do use an attribution tool on top of even Marketo's RCE, which we also use. So we get to play with a lot of technology, mainly for the purposes of determining if a client really has that business need and they've said, hey, we want this report. Great that you guys are giving us advice, but we want to see this view. Then we have a best practice that we can provide to them. But from an attribution perspective, for our actual deals, it's again we use it as a high level guide. Like what are these types of accounts and these buyers participating in?
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not super interested in diving deep into an assumptive basis around that data, saying that, hey, we need to scratch everything but webinars going forward. It's a blend. Anytime you see someone say, hey, I've got a hot lead, I talked to this guy at a show, chances are someone in that organization has talked to that same company or that same person before. And we've seen that happen for years and years and years. So I think systems are just starting to reflect what's truly going on within an organization.
Okay. So last word you had was process. Talk about understanding the buyer's journey. That becomes a more complex task in a ABM type environment because you have so many influencers and stakeholders. Don't they necessarily each one have their own distinct buyer's journey?
I think they do, but when you're with ABM or E or R or whatever we're calling it, like you're already whittling down the number of buying journeys that can happen in a huge manner based on what we've done in the past. Rather than driving 5,000 net new leads on a monthly basis and worrying about where each of those individuals is at, I'm able to really consolidate that down. So yes, I don't think necessarily there are so we term those as buying committees. And on that buying committee, each individual will have a role. Normally that will map to one or two people on our side of the house. And we need to understand what they need to be fulfilled on in order to get that purchase to the end goal. So some of those have full journeys. Some of them just have like an influential role on that deal. But it definitely there's fewer surprises when you take into account all of those buying committee members. No longer do you run into, great, are we ready to get this deal done today? Well, no, I've got to send this to a procurement guy in the UK, and he's gone for the weekend, and I don't even know, we haven't even gone through legal on this yet. Like that happening in a deal should never happen in an ABE process.
I agree. Well, I mean, any large account process. I mean, if you have a logical, proven process, you should understand those
and
steps.
Marketing should understand that, right? Like
Well, I think that's the big change is that marketing needs to understand it as well. Exactly. Yeah. So what sort of your thoughts about what are the really sort of critical factors to enable sales and marketing alignment? It's been a big topic. We've actually, some of our more popular episodes have been on the topic. And I think people are sort of looking for best practices about how to achieve that.
Yeah, so I don't know that I'll have anything like groundbreakingly new because I think that fortunately enough, we're starting to get more of an understanding across the board on what ABE means. So, starting with that list and agreeing upon that with really the entire organization. I think the conversation does need to come out of just sales and marketing because truly I don't believe you can assemble that list without bringing in customer success and total lifetime value of the customer and NPS and all these great SaaS metrics that have come about, whether you're in SaaS or you're just pirating and using some of them like we do in a professional services org. We still want to know, how does this customer perform over their lifetime journey? Are we attaching additional revenues? Are we making them happy? That's information we have to bring into creating that account list. So that's where we start. And then mapping those buyer journeys and those buying committees out based upon that list that we agree upon. That, I think, this middle portion here, we all know that we have different jobs to play. It's kind of like that football team analogy where everyone's going out and they've got a job to do and something to perform. I think how we measure that and we fulfill that like primal need to understand from a management level how all these different people are doing. I think that's something that is really interesting that has not yet fully been defined at this point. And that's probably the area I'm most excited about within ABM ER is simply how do we measure that engagement? Right. Like you talk to the Engagio folks and they'll tell you that time is the measure. Your marketing automation systems are still relying mainly on behaviors and demographics and lead scoring and so on. I don't think we've seen the true answer to that because again, we're not capturing all of the data that we need to score that engagement. But from a managerial perspective, we don't have that trust in our teams yet to say, you understand your job, you're moving towards it, great, I'm sure everything's good. So I think that's the area that ABE is probably weakest on right now and that we need to solve here in this next 12 months.
Well, and the engagement really works out at multiple levels, right? Because as you know, I've interviewed hundreds of sales leaders over the last year, and what they talk about is that, gosh, even once we're working through, got people into our funnel and we're starting to interact with them, the big issue on the sales side is how to engage.
Yes.
So we talk about that at a marketing level. We talk about it on sales and the person-to-person level is like the critical issue that, hey, we may be able to get to the point where we can get on the phone and actually talk to someone, but at that point, how we engage with them isn't working very well.
And there's a big education cycle there as well, right? Like typically sales had kind of one playbook, and it was buyer journey mapped. You know, when you get an inquiry, here's the things you have to ask.
Right.
And then you can get them to the next stage, and this whole opportunity stage mentality, which is kind of the campaign mentality in marketers.
Right.
Both those have to shift into more of this true playbook mentality. And when we talk about playbooks, there's a lot of different definitions floating around there as well.
Excuse me.
I always point to, I'm going to forget their full name, but there's another ABE software company out there, ZenIQ, actually. I think, honestly, they have like the best way of representing plays to where like I'll take a prospect and be like, look, just get this concept down. You know, a play is micro. It's something that, you know, oh, I see that so-and-so attended our webinar and they're a practitioner, so I want to add their boss to my database and I want to start mapping the buying committee. That's a play. So it doesn't have to be these long drawn out like, okay, great, I've got them in a sales cycle and there's 15 steps to this and it ends with a signature.
Yeah, it's less like a football play and more like a, I don't know, a step.
It's kind of less of a game and more of an actual play, right? You know, like you're going out there, you've got this one little thing that you have to do, you understand what it is, you understand what the outputs and the inputs are, and great, who's next? You know, who can help? And then when you get stuck, who do I tap to leverage? You know, maybe you don't go through those every time, but you've got kind of those stuck plays, like executive. Can you reach out and see if this guy will connect with you on LinkedIn? And hey, by the way, you actually have to send a compelling LinkedIn message and not just hit, you know, like connect with me for no good reason, right?
But that should be defined as a play.
Exactly.
That they can access at any time. If they need the CEO to go in, hey, this is the play that we use. Here's the message, or at least the outline of a message. You may have to personalize it, but at least
and
it's
you have
there.
to bring that back into the system.
And you bring it back into the system, right?
Yep. We still have to measure things. We have to record that they happened. But I think this is a license to get a ton more creative with what we've been doing in the past. It's no longer, you know, invite, registered, attended, follow up, engaged, you know, like those like very typical campaign mentalities in marketing are kind of going out the window, where a marketing campaign might not even be anything from an outbound perspective. It's simply, I need to process something at this point in time, and I need to gather some data to enable my sales team.
But and last question on this before we take a short break, but would that be true? Because again, we sort of alluded to it earlier, is would that be true for marketing to small businesses or small mid-sized businesses? Because again, you're not going to necessarily devote similar resources you would for ABM to those tier customers. So there you'll still have the campaign mentality, or is there something new coming down the line to replace that even?
I think it's honestly a blend. You know, like it depends on what your ARR is around that solution. If you're dealing with a $20 a month solution, like, hey, volume and velocity is the way to go. But a lot of SMB solutions are in that like $500 to $1,500 a month range, and that absolutely requires a blend of these solutions. So, you know, we've got fewer people on the buying committee. We're spending less time, and that really should be your equation there.
And fewer plays as well.
Yeah, exactly. Based on that ASP, what can we afford to invest within this account that's going to make the biggest impact, and then go do that. So I think it's about scaling that down in a really smart way.
All right, so we're going to finish the show off. I've got some standard questions I ask all my guests, and first one's a hypothetical scenario where you've just been hired as Justin, have to take a step down. You've just been hired as vice president of sales at a company whose sales have stalled out. Time to hit the reset button. CEO of the board, anxious to have this happen. So what 2 things could you do your first week on the job that could have the biggest impact?
Number one, that's a promotion, because my actual title is janitor right now. I'm taking a big step up here. But so from a sales perspective, what are the biggest impact items that I can affect, right? So number one, we've got to take a look at how start with the data. So how is our pipeline performing today? Who are we selling to? What's push? Like, I always love to take a look at what's pushing. What's the actual sales cycle look like for these opportunities? Normally, when you ask a sales team, oh, we've got a 60 or 120 day sales cycle. When you look at how that buyer is truly performing in the database, that cycle is always much larger. So number one, understanding the true metrics around pipeline, everything from interest all the way to probably customer churn, is really what I want to understand day one. And then secondarily, mapping that to the touch points that we're currently performing on that buyer. So trying to get an accurate representation of essentially what is our playbook today.
Okay.
So that's my first option there. And then I love user testing. So really going around to each one of those departments and our existing customers that we feel like are our best customers. Why do people buy? Why do they not buy from us? On the customer side, what do you love about us? What do you hate about us? And map all of those responses to the cycle that we looked at from that data perspective. And more often than not, you see from the data represented what we see in the customer sentiment and so on. Like, the customer feels like once we signed the contract, we didn't hear from these guys and we churned off the platform 6 months later. What are we doing in our, sales completely detaches. We hand it over to customer success. They do a one-time training and then we hit them up 90 days before renewal. Okay. What in an ABE process, what are we going to do to solve that? From the sales perspective, from the customer success perspective, and just really assemble that team as it should be, as we talked about.
Okay. So some rapid fire questions. You can give me one-word answers or elaborate if you wish. So the first one is, when you, Justin, are out selling your services, what's your most powerful sales attribute?
I'm trying now you got me trying to think of one-word answers. I want to say like consulting or consultant. Like I don't normally take the role of sales in a deal. Normally it's someone that wants to understand why we're different from our competitors, and that's the role that I play.
Sure.
I'm able to tell a really concise story, and this is not a rapid fire answer. I just realized that, but not being in the sales role is what I would say.
Yeah, we just put you down for doesn't follow directions well. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I have the job title.
That's right. So who's your role model in business?
God, it really is cliche, but I love how Benioff has built Salesforce.
Okay. If there's one book you could recommend that every salesperson read, what would it be?
I'd still go with, and I'm going to forget the name of my tribe book here. What is the name of this book? I've really forgotten it here, Andy.
Seth Godin's book on tribes?
Tribal Leadership. Thank you.
Tribal Leadership. Who's the author?
Oh, let's look it up while I'm making every answer way longer than it should be.
No, it's good radio.
So this is where I've stolen the. Actually, it's multiple folks writing this, but Dave Logan, John King, and Haley Fisher. Right.
Okay. We'll get it right on the show notes page. Perfect. Last question for you. What music is on your playlist?
I'll just say Tool because it's the most. It's normally the answer that people love to hear from me, but they're one of my favorite bands.
Okay, that works. Yeah, I was just interviewing someone who told me that in the previous 90 days he had seen 40 concerts.
Was it Jason Miller?
No. It's just it's like 40 concerts. Like, holy cow,
that's a lot of time.
Yeah, we didn't have time to talk about all his music. So, well, good. Well, Justin, thank you very much for being on the show. Tell folks how they can find out more about the LeadMD and connect with you.
For sure. Yeah, so we give away more best practices than most agencies have. That's my little plug. leadmd.com/marketplace. Everything that we produce is available through that URL. If you want to hit me up on Twitter, I'm at jgraymatter, Gray. And LeadMD is at myleadmd on Twitter.
Got it. All right. Well, again, thanks again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and friends, thank you for taking the time to join us today. Remember, make it a part of your day every day to deliberately learn something new to help you accelerate your success. And an easy way to do that is to make sure you join my conversations with top business experts like my guest today, Justin Gray, who shared his expertise about how to accelerate the growth of your business. So thanks for joining me. And until next time, this is Andy Paul. Good selling, everyone.